In tonight's deep dive, we look at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. By now, you've heard the name, but what is it? And why do the world's leading players in business and politics make the climb to this small mountain town nestled more than 5,000 feet high in the Swiss Alps? So to answer these questions and more, I'm joined now by Caleb Silver. He's the editor-in-chief at Investopedia. Caleb, thank you so much for your time. But first, I feel like we should probably just start with the cliff notes here. What is Davos and what makes it so significant?
Yeah, very hard to get to. It is a train and a plane unless you're flying private. But since 1971, the World Economic Forum, this is a gathering, a sort of a nonprofit, but put together with some of the biggest companies and institutions and economists in the world, have been gathering there as a place to talk about the state of the world, particularly through an economic lens. The spirit this year, ironically, is called, the theme this year is a spirit of dialogue, which is kind of interesting when you think about what's been happening. But there have been some major historical moments there. 1988, the Davos Declaration really set the framework for a peace deal between Greece and Turkey. 1992, Nelson Mandela and de Klerk first appeared outside of South Africa together in Davos at the World Economic Forum. It's a place to make a statement as a country, as an economist, as a world leader, as a executive leading a business or a group of businesses. It's a main stage for sort of business, government, and geopolitics all coming together 5,000 feet into the Swiss Alps in a very tough place to navigate if you're a journalist too.
Yeah, I can imagine. But you talk about this theme of a spirit of dialogue. I imagine coming into this 2026 meeting, the president's tariffs are really kind of setting the tone here.
Absolutely, they set the tone. And you could say that the Trump administration stole the show at Davos. It's really the thing that most people have been paying attention to. All the business networks are carrying wall-to-wall coverage of all their interviews with big executives, but they're all talking about the same thing right now, whether it's either AI or it's the United States economic imperialism that we've been witnessing through the invasion of Venezuela and now threats about tariffs because of Greenland, which we now see the president has backed off of. But that has sort of dominated the conversation. And every year you get something that dominates the conversation, but nothing to this scale where everybody's sort of weighing on the next move, and it's a minute-by-minute development, and everybody's reacting in real time. So you're seeing interviews from executives, you're seeing interviews from leading economists and strategists who are reacting to every word the president said today and all the post-speech conferences and press conferences that he's made. That's got all eyes really on Switzerland.
Well, and, I feel like the tone from this administration was really kind of set by that op-ed by Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick going into this. He said, and I want to read the quote here, that this is an opportunity to confront the status quo head on. How is that being received by the rest of the world?
Not well at all. You've seen some world leaders who've been sitting on the same stage with him literally get up from the interview and walk out of the conversation because they don't want to hear any of it. The United States is coming there with a very aggressive stance on its economic policy, on its foreign policy. You heard the president calling other countries weak right now. And the United States, he says, is the only country that has any strength. You've heard that over and over through members of his cabinet. So the United States has been very forceful and very aggressive. The spirit of dialogue is not really burning bright in Davos right now. It's really been the U.S. story and the story, as I say, of economic imperialism that you see manifesting right now, whether it's through threats of tariffs or whether it's through outright invasions of countries like Venezuela.
Well, and you kind of referenced the European Central Bank president reportedly walking out of that dinner during Lutnick's speech. But with that in mind, I mean, how big of a concern is it that the U.S. position at Davos could potentially have some repercussions here at home?
Yeah, well, it could, and I think that has been the big concern, and that's what everybody's been talking about over there. What does it mean going forward if the United States is going to continue to exert itself in the way that it has been over the past 12 months? What does that mean for the world order? We know it's been changing, and we know tariffs has been sort of the centerpiece of that strategy. The question was, would it turn into something a little bit more aggressive? Would military action be involved? We know the president said he would not do that in terms of Greenland and other places, but you can see other countries positioning themselves for this new era of America's superiority that it is claiming on its own, and moving away from the globalization, moving away from the global trade, and moving away from the cooperation that really has been the basis for Davos since 1971, since the first World Economic Forum. This is a real break in that, and you can feel it across a lot of the paradigms that are in place right now, whether it's foreign policy or economic policy.
Well, and we had some breaking news this afternoon. The president announcing essentially the framework of a deal with NATO's Secretary General that would allow for more, I guess, or I'm not even going to say that it would allow for more ownership, because it seems like ownership's off the table there, but certainly would allow for a larger presence potentially of U.S. troops and U.S. Initiatives on the island of Greenland. Was that a surprise to you?
Not at all, because the threat of tariffs, the big stick, is what really caused a lot of consternation among European Union officials. They were even talking about pulling out the so-called economic bazooka, which literally would have cut off trade from U.S. companies to Europe outright. Not just tariffs, not just reciprocal tariffs, but cutting them out of trade, cutting them out of deals, cutting them out of the bidding process, and not allowing U.S. investment in foreign companies. The big sell-off we had in the stock market yesterday was the so-called Sell America trade, where investors around the world were selling American assets, whether it was American stocks or U.S. bonds or the U.S. dollar. They didn't want anything to do with America. Some of that came back today as the president backed off some of those threats right now. So yes, it's very serious, and they're taking it very seriously. But the United States and this Trump administration wants Greenland because they want to build that golden dome, that defense, that they want to put a lot of anti-missile installments there, as well as the fact that there's a lot of natural resources in Greenland, not just access to oil in the Arctic, which has been a big battleground for the last two decades with China and Russia, but also gold, a lot of copper, a lot of zinc, and rare earth minerals. We need all of that, and the United States and this Trump administration wants to make sure we have control over that, plus the ability to build more military installations to defend us from whatever's coming.
Sure, but with the president backing off those tariff threats that were set to go into effect, I believe it was February 1st, there's been a lot of talk today about TACO, the Trump always chickening out acronym. I'm curious, how is that, I guess, registering with this Davos crowd? Have they started to adjust their negotiating position, understanding that, the president will throw out the threat of tariffs or the threat of something and then pull it back?
Yeah, I think people are getting used to the fact that sometimes this is just threats. This is economic coercion or the threat of economic coercion, and that's enough to get people to negotiate and think about what they're going to do next. So just think about the fact that 6 months ago, the European Union, many of those countries signed on to 15% tariffs with the United States at a deal made in Scotland at the president's, where one of his resorts is. They hadn't even ratified that deal. And today and yesterday, they were talking about ripping it up entirely. So even the tariff deal that was in place was not even going to be ratified and put into place before February 1st, when new tariffs were supposed to go into effect. And if the negotiations didn't continue, there was a threat of raising those to 25%. So the threat of tariffs has been enough to get conversations going. And maybe I think people are used to the fact that we don't always follow through with those. This administration doesn't. But it's how do you play the game, this game of economic leverage that this administration has forced upon the rest of the world and our biggest trading partners.
Caleb Silver of Investopedia, thank you for breaking it all down for us today.
Thank you.